Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. Our fighting men and women and our first responders have done an amazing job out in the field in horrible circumstances oftentimes. The question is, when the job is done, when the battle is over, who helps these folks with the stress and the problems and the addictions and the demons? We're going to talk to some folks who have been on the front lines of this, and one in particular who has battled it himself personally. Our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday, and we'll just go from right to left on your screen. Tom Spooner is a Warrior's Heart founder. Lisa Lannon is a Warrior's Heart founder, former law enforcement officer, co-founder. Josh Lannon, Warrior's Heart CEO, former CEO of Journey Healing Centers in Arizona. But Tom, on the right of your screen, again, he was a Special Forces, Delta Force, in the armed services for how many years?
21 years.
21 years. Yeah. So you lived this. You lived with first Desert Storm.
Yep.
What other conflicts?
Yeah, so I came into the military in 1990 whenever I was 20 years old. It's all I ever wanted to do was come into the military. All my heroes in my life, my grandfathers, my uncles, you know, that's who I wanted to roll myself after, you know, and they served. And so I came in 1990, went to the Gulf War as a private, so that was my first exposure to war. I spent about 5 years in the 82nd Airborne Division. After that, I went to 7th Special Forces Group, deployed to Central and South America, all pre-9/11. And then after 9/11, you know, I went to Special Missions Unit, you know, it's within Special Operations, and was there from 2001 until 2011, whenever I retired. I have about 40 total months time in combat, and did 12 rotations.
What does that do to a person?
It takes a toll. It takes a toll. I'm not, a lot of people talk about moral discussions and moral dilemmas. I didn't have any of those. The only regrets that I have is that I didn't get to do more for my country and for my people. And, but it did take a toll, and it was a toll on my humanity. You know, of doing the job, being in combat for that much, it took a toll on me.
You told me before the taping that it wasn't as much even having to kill the enemy, but it was all the other collateral damage that you witnessed that really played havoc with your mind.
Yeah, the things that I struggled, and only speak for myself, because some guys don't have that big of struggles and some guys do. So I'll just refer to mine. And the things that bothered me the most whenever it came to combat wasn't, that was the job description, you know, to engage the enemy. So that, you know, that didn't bother, but after a while it took a toll on my humanity. The big things that bothered me, though, was whenever other U.S. personnel would get killed that we were there with, you know, when friends would get killed, whenever innocents would be lost and killed on the battlefield.
Lisa, you were Las Vegas PD.
Yeah, former Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department officer.
We should make this pretty clear to folks. The stuff you guys deal with on a nightly or daily basis, the same similar attack on your psyche happens as what Tom's described, right?
Exactly. So it's day in and day out. You know, it's call after call or dealing after dealing, you know, with horrific homicides, seeing dead children, domestic disputes, suicides. It's day in and day out, so that takes its toll as well.
Now, you're married to Josh.
Correct.
Josh was not in this line of work. You got into helping first responders and warriors in a completely different way, didn't you?
Yeah, at first, you know, I was the problem. I was the problem in our marriage. I was the problem by drinking, and you know, it wasn't working for our marriage. And luckily, Lisa gave me the ultimatum, because I had dug myself a hole and I didn't know how to get out of it.
An addiction hole.
And yeah, I drank too much. I just, you know, we were emotionally falling apart, spiritually, it just wasn't working. And when Lisa came home one night in full uniform and said, "Josh, I'm done." And I was like, you know, I am too. She goes, "Either you go to rehab tonight or I'm going to divorce you."
And you did. And when you cleaned up, you dedicated your life to what?
Yeah, this is in 2001, dedicated our lives to the healing of others. because in order for me to stay sober, I had to help other people stay sober. And that's what started our journey down this path in the behavioral health field and building rehab centers.
That started the Journey Healing Centers, which we had, how many in Arizona?
We had 3 facilities in Arizona and 3 facilities in Utah.
And it was sold in 2013 to...
It was sold to Elements Behavioral Health.
Yes, Elements Behavioral Health. So then you branch out and decide after selling, you want to continue down this path. And that starts the Warrior's Heart program.
Yeah, we were in process, excuse me, we were in the process to build our 7th location prior to selling. So we sold, we took a little time off, and one thing about selling is that we still had the mission, we still had our calling. So we hooked up with Tom, we started talking about
How did you meet Tom?
At a military seminar, if you will. That's the best way to say it, but...
Yeah.
And that was in North Carolina, where you're from, where you live.
Yep.
And so you guys kind of kindred spirits in trying to help folks.
Yes.
Is there a difference between what the first responders experience and what men and women in the field of battle experience, or is it pretty similar? We talked a little bit about this earlier, but is it pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, from my own experience, it is the same thing. I mean, in combat, I mean, there's a lot more gunfights, so it's a little bit more of the life or death battle going on. But whenever it comes to the things that matter the most or that affect people the most, and again, back to the innocents being killed or buddies getting killed, I mean, all of that happens within law enforcement. The high stress that they're under every day, the scrutiny that they're under every day to perform. You know, and so I believe, you know, I mean, it is there's some differences, but it's 80% the same.
Let me ask you about one difference. When you go into the field of battle, into theater, do you come to terms with the fact that you play a mind game that I may not get out of here, this may be it?
Yeah, it's a total of acceptance.
You do get to that point?
Yeah, before you even go into battle.
Do you get to that point wearing a badge and a uniform?
Yeah, you know there's a possibility you may not come home. So
not as high a probability as what Tom was under,
correct.
But
it's a possibility.
Well, even as a spouse, I would have that level of acceptance that Lisa may not come home tonight.
Then when folks go through these struggles and then do come home, there's addictions. This is a common theme through a lot of this, right? Self-medicating.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the bottom line, right?
Yeah, to numb the pain and to not deal with the emotions that come with the trauma of what we've seen or been involved in.
When you watched what happened here at the Phoenix VA, let me just start with you because it probably hits closer to you than anyone.
Right.
When we realize this probably came as little shock to you.
Right.
You've been hearing about this probably and maybe even lived it.
Yeah.
What's happening out there?
The thing with the VA is that it's there's a lot of good people trying to do a lot of good things. I mean, we have the bad parts in there too, but they're overwhelmed. Like the population that they are trying to serve, they can't handle the numbers. And in a lot of instances, whenever it comes to the treatment of our combat veterans in the VA system, is a lot of times they don't have the best solution because they don't treat the whole person. They may go over to the psych, I mean, they may hand out the pills, all the stuff that we see that goes on. But it's really hard, but the root of all of it is they are overwhelmed. They cannot handle the load that 14 years of war has given them. So that is one of the things that happened with the VA. In my opinion, the biggest thing is that they're just overwhelmed.
So with Warrior's Heart, what's a little different here is you're treating people of like circumstance. You're not mixing warriors and first responders with business people and dentists and doctors. It's all of these folks. Why is that so important?
Yeah, well, the peer network. You know, a lot of times the trauma was together on a team, so we want to heal them together on a team as well. So building that peer network where they can come in and there's a familiarity there where the environment makes sense to them, their peers make sense to them, the counselors. It's
the
all
stories they're hearing in the circle, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can relate on a peer-to-peer level, whereas when we had our former facilities, you know, we did serve a lot of law enforcement officers in there, but it was hard for them to talk about the trauma they went through, sitting across from, a business owner or even maybe a possible drug dealer, that the trauma is not the same.
That makes perfect sense. But that is not going on in other facilities around the country. This is a unique concept.
This will be the first private center dedicated to the healing of our warriors.
And the first one you're opening is in San Antonio. Any plans to open one here, or are you not allowed to because you've worked in this area with under a different banner?
Well, we have it in our expansion plans. We love Arizona. We live in Arizona. Lisa's involved in the community with the governor's office. We do have it on the radar for future expansion.
Tom, before we take a break here, give me a grade on how this country is dealing with our men and women coming home from battle.
For the majority, it's an absolute failure.
An F.
Yeah, because with the veteran suicide rate of 22 a day, that pretty much says how good or how bad we're doing.
And I know you have your own personal story. You came close to ending your own life due to these same kinds of circumstances. We'll talk about that and more when Fox 10 Newsmaker Sunday continues right after this. Thanks for joining us again on Newsmaker Sunday. We're talking about a very unique program to try to help warriors who come back from the battlefield, as well as first responders who go through very similar types of PTSD and substance abuse issues oftentimes. It's called the Warrior's Heart Program, and there is one now open in San Antonio, Texas, others to open soon. A little bit different than the Journey Healing Centers, which our guests started. Back how many years ago did you start Journey Healing Centers?
2002. Well, the idea started in 2001 and we opened in 2002.
And again, you had 3 here in Arizona, 3 in Utah.
Correct.
Okay. Tom Spooner was former Special Forces Delta Force operator, Mission 22 co-founder. What was Mission 22?
Mission 22 came out of my own experience and the experience of one of the other co-founder, Magnus Johnson, and that just kind of ties into my story as far as through all the combat that I experienced. It took a toll on me, and I had taken a lot of concussions, a lot of explosive shocks to me, and
you had traumatic brain injury?
I had mild traumatic brain injury.
Can you see it on a brain scan?
No, they can't see it on a brain scan, but it comes out in testings.
Okay.
And at the end of the road for me, whenever I was getting out of 2011, and about the summertime of 2010, I almost became one of those 22. I almost took my own life because I couldn't process what was going on with me. I had a huge spiritual life, had an incredible wife and children. I had everything in my life set up for success, and I almost killed myself. What saved me was another warrior, a friend of mine, that wouldn't allow me to continue to go into the darkness.
Now tell me, Tom, what did the warrior, your friends, see that your wife and people close to you didn't see? Was this person able to somehow spot what was going on where other people missed it?
Well, I would tell him of my struggles more so than I would, me, my wife, or my children, because I wanted to shelter them from the thing, not out of secrecy, but just out of trying to protect them and me just trying to figure it out. And I wasn't able to figure it out without help. And that warrior buddy of mine, pushed me into, because I didn't want to let him down either, or my family, but I wasn't thinking clearly. So I went into all these different treatment modalities of at the cognitive therapy, at the TBI center, went to physical therapy, went to vestibular therapy, psychological therapy, and the thing about it was that it all worked, and it all helped me. And once I got through all of that, I just couldn't imagine anyone else, struggling the way that I did to try to get help.
Let's roll some video in the big wall of troops, either one or two, it's fine. Just to drive home the point that when folks are out in theater, you can't shut it off, can you?
No.
There's no real downtime. This is always on your mind. It's always there.
Yep, you have to be trained to shut it off, just like anything in life. The thing that was missing with me was the abilities to shut it off.
What about when you come home and you've been in this incredible fight or flight mode for so long, and then you come home and now you're sitting in an alternate universe. You're sitting in church. You're at the grocery store.
Right.
That has to be mind-blowing.
Very surreal at times. But it all comes back to the heart of the warrior of, like, we're there to protect and to serve and to love, our families and friends. So it forces us to engage and not be, in our minds back overseas, but eventually over time I lost the ability to do that,
Lisa, same thing with an officer. When you come off a shift, hard to shut it down?
It can be. You're always thinking of, what could I do differently, or reliving something. So we either learn to
compartmentalize.
There you go.
Yeah.
Couldn't say the word.
Right.
Or drink or use substances to numb it out.
Let's talk about that. How much does substance abuse run through all of this?
I would say good 30 to 50%.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
It could be higher. That's reported. In law enforcement, there's a big stigmatism that you suffer in silence, that you're okay because you have to go out the next day and be on the job and be productive and be in service. So those statistics are those that are reported or known.
And I think you said, Josh, and you said, Tom, as well, in the break, that until you deal with the substance abuse, any kind of therapy will not work.
No.
Correct. Yeah, because to get to the deep psychological stuff, we have to clear what's getting in the way, and that's the self-medication. Because otherwise, we start dealing with the psychological stuff, and the self-medication just numbs all that out,
Right.
or it becomes a roller coaster.
Estimated that over 1 million U.S. vets take prescription opioids for pain, and nearly half of them use drugs chronically.
Yeah.
That's shocking. And the opioids are just, that stuff's murder. I mean, that's bad stuff.
Yeah.
And especially over the long haul.
Yeah.
When you get folks, first responders, veterans, in a group setting where they're all getting treatment, but they may be at different stages of treatment,
Right.
how does that all work?
It becomes a mentor kind of structure. If someone's been in the program for a little bit longer, they become the mentor and they help the newer people kind of learn the ropes. Here's the process. And it's really part of that team and that tribe mentality is that, here, I'm here to help you. I'm here to be in service again.
Does insurance pay for this? Can you
does.
get, insurance will pay for this?
Yes.
Different than the VA where, I don't know how that all works, but at the VA, you try to get help there. We keep hearing these stories that people
You
couldn't
just have
get
to
help.
wait in line at the VA.
Here, if you get accepted for treatment, you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah, depending on bed availability and your assessment, if you qualify for the program, then we look at your insurance and different ways to pay for treatment. But absolutely, is we want it to be easy for them to come in to treatment because they're already dealing with so much other stuff.
And when you're there, you live there, you stay there?
Oh, yeah.
It's a round-the-clock deal.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Inpatient treatment.
Can you fix somebody in 6 weeks?
We can plant a lot of seeds and we can clear the fog in 6 weeks.
How do you do follow-up after that if somebody needs it?
Yeah, we have a strong alumni program, and we did it at Journey Centers, and we're doing that again at Warriors Heart, is that we do alumni groups, we do alumni get-togethers, we have people that call them, how you doing, what's going on, to really build that peer network with them.
Is the government catching on that this is a powerful way to do this and that the VA needs to look at some different modalities of how to do this kind of thing? Or in your experience, is the VA incapable of doing something like this?
I don't know if they're incapable of it, but they're so far behind the power curve. They're still just trying to catch up. And again, it comes back to the idea of treating the whole person at one time. You treat the chemical dependency, you begin the treatment for PTSD, and then you at least test and begin to treat for mild traumatic brain injury.
Whereas if you went to the VA, I assume you would go in to be treated for a physical injury. Then you'd come back a few weeks later and you might get a little counseling. In the meantime, you might be drinking
Right.
or taking pills. So you can't, it's hard to get a handle around the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it was very hard for me, just in my experience of I had to go to all these different locations to seek help. But it was all there available for me, but again, when you're having problems thinking, it's hard to do simple things. So it comes back to the concept of, of treating the whole person.
What would you guys, we're going to take a break here, but what would you guys, and I'll start with you, Lisa, what would you want the public to know about what first responders go through, folks in battle, people returning home, or who have been home now because we've tried to de-escalate or wind down some of these conflicts. What would you want the public that has no idea about any of this?
Well, you know, the people who go into service in the military, law enforcement, you know, an EMT, firefighter, they go in to be in service to their country in some way, shape, or form. And when they deal with the trauma day in and day out, there has to be some kind of healing avenue for them. You know, we don't go into the job thinking we're going to do a bad job today, but sometimes our emotions get in the way and we don't know how to deal with them. And that's what we're going to do at Warrior's Heart, is get them healed, get them functioning so they can go back and be in service.
Now, you do have a center that's opening. It's open now in San Antonio.
It'll be open in February.
February it opens, but there is a hotline, and I want to give you that number. There are people on this hotline right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you're a first responder, a warrior, whatever it may be.
Or even a family member of, we can help you.
Okay. So I'll give it to you. It's 844-448-2567. 844-448-2567. We're going to try to get this number up on the screen as we progress through the program. We're going to be back for one more segment, talking about really a remarkable approach to try to heal veterans and first responders who are dealing with many issues. Back in a moment on Newsmaker Sunday. Back on Newsmaker Sunday with the founders of Warrior's Heart, Josh Lannon, Lisa Lannon, his wife, and Tom Spooner. Tom, Delta Forces, former Special Forces, Delta Force operator. I wanted to ask you about transitioning from the battlefield to coming back home. We see these homecomings, and Carrie and I, my co-anchor and I, always kind of look at each other when there's a celebration going on and think that there's a whole nother battle that's going to unfold after everybody gets home.
100% accurate. For me, just speaking.
That transition is not easy.
The transition is very hard, and for me, the reason why it was even harder was because I wasn't trained for it. And that's not the military's responsibility to train me for after battle, you know, in my opinion, is, you know, but I needed to be trained like how to be patient, like how to engage with my family, you know what I mean, how to compartmentalize or to process, you know what I mean, all those emotions, all those events, the life events, and the natural things that happen with a human being going to combat.
You said it was harder coming home than being in theater.
Absolutely. It was much easier for me to be in combat than to be back home.
And with Delta Forces, you would go out on a moment's notice and then come back.
Yeah, we had a very high operation tempo, much like all the special operations forces.
So you could be out in some remote place and then back in your living room in 24 hours?
At times.
Oh, man. I don't know how you do that. How do you shut that off?
Yeah, at the end I couldn't. I couldn't shut it off, and that's where my struggles really started to begin.
We've got the hotline up here, and Josh, who will be on the other end of that phone, and who is generally calling?
Yeah, so who generally calls is the loved ones, the ones that have identified the problem, like Tom's wife. It's like, I really got to do something. I don't know if my loved one's going to make the call. So they reach out to us. We provide a support network. We end up actually eventually talking to the warrior themselves. So who's on the other call is a fellow warrior, someone that has been there, done that, they understand. And we have resources available so we can connect with no matter what branch or wherever they come from, we have fellow warriors to be there.
And even though you don't have a Warrior's Heart here in Arizona, you have one in San Antonio that will open in February, you said. There will be help on the other end of the line that can direct you to services somewhere.
Yes, 24 hours a day. We're already placing people now until our facility opens.
Are we getting better at this as a nation?
I know that there's a big attempt at getting better. You know, I mean, that there's a lot of people really trying to do the right thing, and the right thing is to take care of our protectors.
Let me just say for all of us, Tom, thank you for your service. Lisa, you too, as an officer, a law enforcement officer, and Josh for just being here and starting this. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Best of luck. We need you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week on Newsmaker Sunday.